Welcome to Curing Curiosity. I'm Sneha Nair, and today we're going to be talking about the journey to med school. Today I'm joined by Ola, a Canadian med school graduate, who's going to be sharing our journey on how she got to where she is.
I started off in my undergraduate degree at McMaster. I did an undergrad in health sciences, which is a pretty common undergrad for those in medicine. So I started there. And then in my third year, I applied to medical school, which is
Mm,
often when people apply for the first time. And I was lucky enough to get in to McMaster's medical school. So I got to stay at my home school,
mm,
studied at Mac for 3 years in med school, and then applied for residency.
mm.
And that's how I got to my first year residency position that I'm in now.
That's amazing. So, what helped you lean towards the medical field?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I was in high school, I knew I really liked the sciences and I
Mm,
really like chem and bio specifically more than physics. From there, I kind of just started to look at different options where I could have a career that focused on the sciences. And I knew I really liked the health science program at McMaster. So I started off by kind of looking at the different programs that universities offer and looking at what courses that they offer to those students. And I found that the health science programs at different schools had the courses that I liked the most. And I found myself really interested in that, in studying that kind of stuff. So that was my first step, is figuring out like this is the content that I was interested in. And then once I was in undergrad, I started to do a little bit more digging of like, okay, what kind of career do I want within like the health sciences once I figured that's where I wanted to focus. And I did like some like volunteer work with different community organizations that worked with people who are either underprivileged, homeless individuals, refugees, and migrants. And I knew I really liked working with those populations. And I realized that one of the things I found the most like fulfillment and joy in was getting to interact with different types of people from different walks of life. So then I had the two pieces. Like I knew I liked the content and the sciences, and I knew I wanted a job where could interact with all these different types of people.
If you were to go back and do it all over, is there a specific thing you would make sure to do more of or spend more time on?
That's a great question. I actually don't think there would be something that I would go back and try and do more of. I feel like my philosophy when I was in undergrad and like when I was at the end of my high school was to just do activities that I was interested in.
Mm,
Like I tried not to be like, okay, I'm going to pad my CV with as many things as possible. I just tried to sign up for things that I really liked doing.
mm,
And I think that approach is what like got me into medical school is because I was like focusing on the quality of the stuff that I was doing and making sure I was doing things I was actually interested in. In high school, I did like DECA, which I know is a really popular thing. I'm not a business minded person at all, but I found DECA cool.
So let's steer the conversation to what you're doing now. What's a day in your life?
Sometimes it's Mac, it's case based learning. So it's a lot of like tutorials and things like that. That's where I went to med school. But it's the focus of the first half of medical school is like to teach you the content behind the
Mhm,
human body and what can go wrong in it. And then the second half is what we call clerkship, which was actually my favorite part of medical school. And you get to rotate through all the different specialties. So you get to do adult
mhm.
medicine, pediatric medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, which is women's reproductive health and deliveries, surgery, psychiatry. So you get to explore all these different
Mhm.
fields. And then you also do electives in what you're interested in.
Did that help you decide what you want to do?
100%. Yeah, the electives are supposed to help you explore, but they're also
Mhm,
there to help you build your application so that you can get reference letters and stuff for when you apply for residency. So
mhm,
just by testing things out. And then now, like as a pediatric resident, things change. You're working, you're not really studying as much.
yeah.
So, like, I will go in, see some patients, review with my staff, and try to read around and study in the evenings to try and like learn even more.
So you're still studying now.
Yeah, you're not studying for a test or an exam, although we do have exams at the end of our residency training. Right now, I'm
Mhm.
not studying for an exam. I'm more so studying so that I can learn to be a better doctor.
How was your undergrad like?
Okay, sure. So I did my undergrad, like I said, in health sciences,
Mhm,
and it was a mix of like traditional science courses and what we call inquiry courses. So it was a lot of problem solving, quite like project based courses and problem solving where you come up with a question by yourself and then you
mhm,
and your group research on your own to find the answer. so that you can build those skills of like learning to find answers by yourself without someone teaching it to you. And then after like my second year of undergrad, I wrote my MCAT, which is when most people write theirs. And then it's pretty common for people to have to write it more than once.
Mhm,
I wrote it my second year and then I decided to apply in my third year. So your third year is really the first year that you can apply.
mm.
Not every program allows you, like not every medical school will allow you to apply in your third year. So I could only apply to a few. And I was honestly treating it like a bit like a trial run.
So most people don't get in after applying in the third year?
I would say like it's a mix. It's definitely not uncommon for people to get in their third year. And I
Mhm,
had lots of classmates who also got in their third year. It wasn't like I was the only one. There was a decent amount of us, like maybe 30.
mhm,
And then I would also say that it's very common for people to apply it multiple times, like third year, fourth year. Lots of people do master's programs and then they apply again.
mm,
The first half is all lectures and like learning the content behind medicine, so all the anatomy and stuff. And then the second half is all the actual clinical rotations.
mm,
So you take everything you learned when you're writing your notes in the first half of med school and you
mhm,
apply it on your rotations. And during the rotations, you like try out all the different specialties and you kind of see what you like the most. And then from there, you do electives in the areas that you are like considering doing your specialty in.
mhm,
And then at the end of medical school, you have to apply for what type of doctor you want to be. So you apply for a residency program that will train you to be that kind of doctor.
mhm.
Most med schools in Canada are 4 years. So it's like 2 years of the first part with the lectures, 2 years of the rotations. Mac is a little different. It's 3 years. So you do a year and a half and a year and a half. It's a bit faster. The other thing with Mac is that you don't get summers off.
So from your 4 years, which part did you enjoy the most?
Yeah, for like in medical school, my favorite was my clerkship, which is what we call the clinical rotations. It's really
Mhm,
cool. You get to see so many different parts of the hospital. You get to be a part of like deliveries, like you get to see babies being born. You get to scrub into surgeries
so
and
you're
see.
not stuck to one specific area?
No, you rotate. So that's why I liked it so much. It's fun to
Mhm.
rotate.
Comparing that to what you do now, what do you enjoy more? Being able to rotate or having more of a fixed schedule?
That's a great question. I I loved being able to rotate and trying out those different things, but at the end of the day, I'm a pediatric resident. I enjoyed working with kids the most. So I love that what I get to do now is all with kids. And I still rotate as a resident. So every month I'm in a different part of the hospital doing a different thing. So I
Mhm.
still get to experience a lot of different types of patients and problems and get to do different skills. And yeah, so there's still a lot of variety. It's just all with kids, which I like.
As a resident, what's a day in your life like?
Yeah. So right now I'm on a merge. So it's a very inconsistent schedule. Residents basically work in the hospital as junior doctors.
Mm,
When you're a first year, you are the most junior doctor on the team. So
mhm,
you work on a team with other people who are above you in training. So they have more experience.
mhm,
And then the head of each team is the staff or the attending. So that's the doctor that's finished all their training and they're completely like done
mhm,
basically. So that's kind of what it looks like. So I go into work, I see my patients, but I will review with one of my seniors or with my staff and make sure like my patients are seen by other people and we review the plan together and all the decisions are made as a team. But it gives you like as you progress through your training, you get more and more independence on what decisions you make and what things you do by yourself as you like demonstrate those skills. Does that make sense?
would you say it's easier to work with kids than adults?
I actually think it might be harder. Children are like more difficult to examine because
Mhm,
they're 2 years old and they want to run away from you and they are crying. So they're harder to examine. They can't tell you what's wrong. So it can be harder in some ways, but it's more, it's fun. To me, it's like interact with kids and there's so many different age ranges. Like a little baby is so different from like a teenager. And the way that I interact with a little baby and their parents is very different from how I interact with a teenager and their parents. So
mhm.
I like that variety, which is why I chose Pete's. But I don't think it's easier or harder.
The med school process seems rough. How did you get where you are?
Great question. So I guess like, starting off in high school because that's
Mhm,
our target audience is high schoolers right now.
mm,
I think if you're in grade 10 or 11 and your goal is medicine, I think like everything I said earlier still stands. Like still try out different things, work on your presentation skills and your like leadership skills and these things that will help you in every field, no matter what you decide to go into.
Mhm.
I think that would be the priority. And then the second thing is you should start thinking about what you want to do in your undergrad because that's step number one. And I think it's really important because, like you said, it is kind of rough. It can be hard to get into medical school. You need to have backup plans.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't like pigeonhole, like if you're in grade 10 or 11, be like, I just want medicine. That's all I'm going to do. So pick something where you're like, okay, this is what I'm interested in. Like, look through the programs and
Mhm.
what courses they provide, and it will help you. There's very limited prerequisite courses to get into medical school. That'll be like the first step is trying to pick what programs you want.
Is there any specific advice you would give a high school student?
Yeah, I think like my biggest thing would be to like pursue things that you're interested in because then you can have multiple options
Mhm.
sprout from them. And then the other advice I would give is that one of the hardest things about medical school applications is your GPA, because your GPA, which is your average basically when you're an undergrad, is calculated usually from the beginning. So if you don't focus on your classes when you're in first year of university, second year of university, and then you decide you want medical school later, it's really hard to go back and fix your average.
Are there any tools or skills that helped you get where you are?
I think like specific study skills,
Mm.
like if you want a career in something like medicine that will make you study for a very long time, then you should figure out what works for you for studying. And everyone's very different. So figure out what works for you.
So when studying for the MCAT, what was it like?
Good question. So, like I said, most people do it in their second year, like the summer after their second year
Mm.
for the first time, which is when I wrote mine. It's a lot of content. So there's these textbooks that you can buy that cover all the different content, and people usually start with that. They work through those textbooks. It's often a review of a lot of the stuff that you've already learned in first and second year of undergrad, so it's not too bad. And then from there, you do practice questions.
So by then you would have learnt most of it in your undergrad?
Yeah, depending on what you do for your undergrad. Like if you do like life sciences at McMaster, for example, then you would have done all of those like organic chemistry, biochemistry.
Mm.
But the textbooks are really good. They're pretty good at teaching you.
When do you suggest taking the MCAT?
I
Second
would
year or sooner?
I don't know if I would do it sooner because it's kind of hard after your first year of undergrad to do it. I think like timing it after your second year is nice because you give yourself 2 years to kind of like get used to university and focus on undergrad.
Mhm.
And then you can start thinking about like, okay, what do I want to do after undergrad and do the MCAT.
How did you balance the studying with the stress and your social life?
Yeah. So when I was studying for the MCAT, it was COVID. So I didn't have a social life. Like when I think back, I was under a lot of stress at that point. And I think it's because
Mhm.
I didn't have the like
Balance.
balance of the other side. So it shows you like really how important it is to have that kind of balance because I was way more stressed than I needed to be. And yeah, I mean, that was just the reality of COVID. It's not really because I purposely was avoiding going out with
Mhm.
my friends or socializing. I think you just need to figure out where your priorities lie. And
Mhm.
you also have to trust yourself a little bit. Like when you're stressed out and you feel like you're going to fail everything, then you're going to have a really hard time making time for friends because you just
Mhm.
always want to study and you're like, no, I need to do this, I need to do that. You need to have some faith in your abilities and
Mhm.
in your study plans. I think what helped me a lot in undergrad is like planning ahead.
Taking a couple steps back, what's some advice you would have for grade 11s?
Okay, I think grade 11 is probably the year when like your courses kick up the most in high school and like how like the
Mhm.
academics really kick up. I think focusing on your average is important, like trying to do as well as you can in your classes because the higher your average, the like better chances you'll have at getting into the university programs that you want.
Mhm.
And I know like people say like, oh, your grades don't really matter in grade 11, grade 12 are the ones that matter the most. I would say both of them. Like if your grades are high enough in grade 11, then you'll get early admissions, which is really nice to know that you'll be able to go somewhere that you want to go. So I think it's important. And also like you need to build the habit of studying, right? So
Mhm.
you can't just like leave it until grade 12. You need to learn how to study, learn what works for you. And that's why it's important. You can't expect that all of a sudden in grade 12, you're going to have super high 90s and everything because you're going to start
Mhm.
trying more. Like you need to start trying early because then you'll build those habits early. I think for grade 12, I would like it's still like the same like average advice applies so that you can get your programs that you want
Mhm.
and start planning early which programs you want to apply to. This kind of applies to grade 11s too. I think by the end of grade 11 you should start looking at the undergrads that you want to apply to. I know like in Canada or in Ontario you can only apply like to a max of 3 programs within every school. So trying to figure out like which 3 you want.
So knowing what you want to do really helps.
Yeah, it also helps you pick your courses because
Mm.
you'll know, like, okay, I don't really want to do engineering. So then you know you don't really need to do physics because it's not going to be
Mhm.
required. But if you do want to do engineering, then you'll know that you need to do grade 12 physics because it'll be required for your application.
Mhm.
Actually, when you apply to medical school, they let you list all the activities you've done since you were 16 years old. So if you've done activities in high school in grade 11 and 12 after you turn 16, they will allow you to list those on your application. If you started it before you were 15, I'm pretty sure like, before you were 16, but you continued it after, you can still include it. Like, I volunteered at the hospital, like, when I started in grade 9, so I included that. Yeah, but you
Mhm.
it's, like, anything that you did when you're 16 plus.
Okay. For your volunteer opportunities, is there any specific activity that looked good?
I think the importance is, like, the quality, so, like, the amount of time and the amount of effort and, like, what role you had, and I
Mhm.
think something that programs love to see is progression.
I understand you did an IB program in high school. Was there any advice you could give IB students?
I think IB can be really hard, and like, the advice I would give the IB students is more that, like, it'll be worth it when you're in university because you will have learned how to study and you would have built those skills really well.
Mhm.
I think IB is more challenging in a way that, like, it forces you to learn how to teach things yourself and, like, how to find practice questions on your own and that kinda stuff.
Mhm.
So, that will help you when you're an undergrad.
If you still remember much about your IB program, what was the hardest part?
I remember the end like, 1st semester, grade 12 was the hardest part of IB. Like, it was the wrap up of a lot of, like, our projects and, like, my
Right.
extended essay was due then. It might have just been my school that made me submit it then, but my extended essay, a lot of our, like I think they're called IAs,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the like, the math IA and, like, all the IAs were due then,
Mhm.
and then we did our, like, final exams for my high
Mhm.
school, we would do them at the end of 1st semester.
Oh,
Yeah, so then we didn't actually end up writing 2nd semester exams because we wrote the IB exams in May.
so it helped.
Yeah.
You're very academically focused. What helped you stay on track?
When I was in high school, I wasn't focused on, like, a specific path. I
Mhm.
just, like, liked school, and I liked the projects that I was involved in outside of school, like, the
Mhm.
extracurriculars, I found them fun. So I think doing that stuff that I just enjoyed is what helped me focus. I think it helped that, like, I still would hang out with my friends and go out and do things with them and would still try to find that balance.
Mhm.
Same thing in med school, like, you sometimes just have to, like, relax and be like, "Okay, like, this test is not the end of the world, like, I can take a step back and go out for dinner or do something fun or attend this birthday party
Yeah.
and prioritize the other things in life a little bit."
Thank you so much for all your help today. You really cleared up a lot of questions about the process to med school. And thank you for your time and all my random questions.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I had a great time. I hope I was able to clear up a little bit.
Mm.
I really think like my final takeaway would be not to stress too much about locking things in when you're in high school, but to focus on building your skills and finding the stuff that you're interested in.
Mhm.
And so I hope that was the main takeaway for everyone. I don't like to cause too much stress because I know this can be stressful in general. And this is a wonderful podcast. Like, I think it's such a great idea to give high school students a bit more context and
Mm.
information on what to expect in these different career paths. So, this is a great idea. And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Okay, that's it for our episode on curing curiosity. Hopefully, I got answers to a lot of your questions. And I thank Ola again for all her help today. Hopefully, that cleared up questions on the process to med school.